Good morning, everybody. Just want to make sure. Can everybody hear me? Have we got some volume going? Yep, we do have volume going. Good. Wanted to make sure. All right. All right, we're going to give a couple more minutes, let a few more people pop on, and then we'll see, or we'll get things going forward. Make sure we've got everything up and running the way we need to. It's always these first few minutes of everything that throws, or that makes life interesting, I should say. All right. Just give a few more minutes. The lag should be a lot better today since I made some changes to the YouTube live settings, so it shouldn't be quite as what's the word I'm looking for? Quite as laggy, or quite, you won't have to wait quite as long to quite as long for a response if you chat, or if you send a question in or something like that through chat. We're gonna bring the that didn't work. We're also playing with the video a little bit, apparently. Boy, that just washed me out like you wouldn't believe, didn't it? It's always kind of interesting because every time I start this, I've got to play with the settings a little bit more, just to make sure it actually looks decent. And by the time I get it set, it might have changed a little bit for you guys, and so we're working on it. Just bear with me a little bit. And make sure I'm just not completely whited out for you guys. Yeah, I think that's the best we're going to get for the moment. All right. Okay. Another 2 minutes, and we'll get things going. Can kind of hear the echo as I've got my monitor going. If you want to, and you can, if you were part of yesterday's class, go ahead and throw up on the chat something you liked, something you didn't like, something you'd like me to change, something you'd like me to kind of work around. And we're going to be doing different things throughout the week and into next week as we get the technology and get things refined, I guess you could say. All right. So I think we got pretty much everybody we're going to get for the moment. Maybe we'll have people pop by as time goes on. So let's get started. So welcome to the second class of the COVID-19 series, as we're going through talking about people's fears, talking about people's problems, their concerns. And before we get into some of the new stuff, I actually kind of want to go through a little bit of review for what we were doing last time. Last week we were talking about what fears people were going through and having, and we talked a little bit about how they affect you, how they're very valid, how they can be hugely strong. Things like getting sick, getting others sick, job loss, pretty much everything you see on the screen now. these were some of the things, and these are actually the most common fears out of everybody who sent in their questions and their concerns. These were the most common of the fears that people were dealing with. The other thing was, the big thing we talked about was, how will the world change? Will this ever end? Will it become the new normal? And yeah, it will become the new normal, or it might become the new normal, but that's okay. Normal changes all the time. And the problem with these fears, as we talked about yesterday, they're so intense because it's so hard to see the future, I should say, because they're so intense right now. We talked about how it's like a wolf with its leg caught in the trap. It's so painful right now that it's hard to see a time where it won't be painful. It's hard to see the future. It's hard to see the light at the end of the tunnel. And it creates a huge negative mental loop that just cycles downwards and downwards and downwards. The other part of it was fear of the new, fear of, what if this is the new normal? Is this will it be different from what I'm used to? And we talked about how normal changes fast or it changes slow, and how this has kind of gradually come onto us, and it's gradually become the new normal over the course of weeks rather than an instantaneous thing. What'll be the new normal tomorrow? Who knows? But it's okay. Things will progress, things will change, and one way or the other will come through. One of my favorite authors, Louise McMaster Bujold, in one of her books, she has a scene where the main character is speaking with his father about a young 10-year-old boy who's gone through all of this trauma, lost his dad, had to move. His whole life has been uprooted again and again and again over the last few months. And he asks his dad, what is all of this going to make him? And his dad pauses for a moment and says, eventually, 11. And we're all going to do the same thing. Eventually, things will go through, things will move forward, and normal will change again and again and again. So don't worry about it. Let it just focus on reminding yourself that things will change. Focus on distracting yourself from these negative emotions, or short-circuiting them, basically. Find ways to get away from them. As soon as you notice them, get away from them. Break off the mental loop. Find something. Play with a puppy. Listen to great music. Exercise a little bit. Play with your kids. Treat yourself. Don't sit there and have dessert all day just trying to distract yourself from the negative, but watch a happy movie. All these things, there's tons of things out there you can do, and you know what gets you out of a bad mood. Whether it's your favorite music, whether it's uplifting music, or maybe if it's even grunge, hard metal, pop, whatever music gets you up and going. I'm dating myself here, aren't I? Whatever gets you happier and away from that will start to short circuit that. And you pretty much do it as many times as you need to until you retrain yourself to break the loop regularly. The other thing we talked about was get it out of your head. Get it out of that big gray dark space that's the inside of your head. Get it out. Give it some physicality. Get it out on paper. Write it down. And that's part of what we're going to do today, just in a different way. The big exercise we're going to talk about today is pretty much the basis of why we call this 5-minute mindfulness. But journaling gets, whether you're writing it down on paper, typing it out on a laptop, or recording it into your phone, talking to somebody about it, talking to your partner, talking to a friend, talking to another family member, talking to a therapist. That's huge. Getting it out here instead of in here makes it something you can deal with, makes it something you can focus on rather than getting stuck in. So with that all said, last night, after the last class, we got a new question that I really kind of want to address and want to focus on. The question was, or the comment I should say was, I feel pressured to accomplish more with all of this free time. And the person who sent it to me said she's worried about feeling like, okay, I've got all this free time. I should be getting this accomplished. I should be getting that accomplished. Why aren't I doing that? And it's this huge, almost peer pressure. Excuse me. It's almost this peer pressure to focus on all these projects that we always say we should do, and we don't, because there's more important things. We got to focus on work. We got to focus on this and that, rather than just being happy in this time that she's got, that her bills are taken care of for the moment, that her kids are healthy, that they've got food, they've got shelter, that they've got the basics. And that's something she's got to work through, and something a lot of people have to work through. I've had to work through it. I've pretty much, when we had to shut down the office, I was actually staring at a month or more of absolutely nothing to do. And I started looking around at all these little projects. One of them is that I'm kind of working on now is for my portable speaker system. It's changing some things I want to do about that. And there's part of me that's going, well, I should be getting this fixed, that fixed. I could build an extension to the porch, even though I don't have the money or don't have the authority or the authorization to. I could be building this. I could be fixing that. I could be doing maintenance on my vehicles. I could be making more videos for you guys. And it's really hard, even still. It's really hard to be able to sit back and say, you know what? It's okay for me to sit on my butt on the couch and do nothing for a little bit. A long time ago, a friend of mine and I, back when I was a lot younger, actually about 20 odd years ago, a friend of mine, there were 5 of us living in one house. And he and I, of the 5 of us, it just so happened that he and I were the only ones working, the only ones bringing in money. And we were talking about how we were having issues. We were kind of broke. What are we going to do? What are we going to do? Everybody else was trying to get jobs. Don't get me wrong. We weren't living with a bunch of slackers. But he and I were sitting in the garage talking, and we finally came to the conclusion that, you know what? You can only do as much as you can do. You can give 100%. You can try to give 110%, but you can give 100%. You can only do as much as you can do. At that point, you're starting to hurt yourself. You're hurting yourself either emotionally, physically, emotionally. And so in these times where you may not be able to do anything else, you may have done everything you can do up until this point, and right at this moment, you have nothing else you can do. You've completed all your projects. You can't go to work, and we are pretty much driven to go every day. We are driven to feel like we have to have a purpose. We have to accomplish something. We have to be productive, because that's how we're trained in the workplace. If you're not doing something, you're not getting paid, which is a motivation for most people. But right now, if you're in the situation where there is nothing more you can accomplish right now, it's okay to give yourself permission to sit your butt on the couch, play with the kids, play with the dog, do a puzzle, paint, do something relaxing. It is very much okay to give yourself permission to do that. You don't have to worry about focusing on what more can I accomplish. And that's actually an important part of self-care, something we talked about yesterday. A lot of people are losing their motivation for self-care because they're not doing a whole lot, or they don't have that daily purpose that daily motivation that they've trained themselves into. So they're kind of floating off into this gray area of lack of schedule. But part of self-care is being able to step back and say, okay, I can relax. I can take some time. Anything that gets your mind off the stressful stuff. And we've got a lot of stressful stuff going on. So the main point is just focus on doing what you can do and relaxing for the rest. It's okay to do that. I know that was a bunch of tangents. That's actually going to be pretty much a whole class in and of itself at a point later on. I think I've pretty much taken up enough time with it for now, though. So let's move on. Okay, so the two things we're going to focus on today are the actual 5-minute exercise, the basis of 5-minute mindfulness. And we're going to start to kind of go into how your brain kind of works and to give you better understanding, so you understand why the exercise is important and you understand some other things that we're going to be doing as we move forward with these classes. So before I get too much further, I realized as I was kind of getting things ready for this class that I really haven't gone through a lot of the steps that we teach at 5-Minute Mindfulness on how mindfulness is achieved, because mindfulness is really a skill. It's not something you are. I mean, you can be mindful, but to live a truly mindful life, it's a skill that you have to practice and become better at. It's not just something you automatically do. In fact, one of the things I tell a lot of people who try meditation and give up after about 2 or 3 days or a week and say, I can't do this, I'm not good at it. It's a skill, just like you learned how to drive a car, just like you learned how to do the job you're doing. Any skill, even something as simple as walking, you had to learn that skill. Being mindful is the same way, and learning to live a mindful life is the same way. It's a skill you got to practice daily. The nice thing is we're only going to start out 5 minutes a day and then build up from there. So, first step of mindfulness is awareness. You want to be aware of what's going on in your mind and again, bring it out into where you can focus on it. You can focus on it. You can give it some physicality so you can recognize it. A lot of people talk about the train of thought. Well, most people are riding around on the train of thought as it goes from station to station to station and randomly through the countryside. What the step of awareness does is it teaches you to step off the train so that you can watch it go by and see all the cars that are going by, all the thoughts, all the triggers, all the emotions that are going by as they happen, rather than being caught up in them. And with that awareness, you can start to see which thoughts, which emotions, which triggers are healthy, which ones are unhealthy, which ones are helping you move forward, which ones are holding you back. All right? Second step of analysis, that's where you're really starting to see which of your thought patterns are unhealthy and why they're unhealthy. And it's a better way to put it. Why are they unhealthy? Why are they healthy? Where did they come from? The associations that you've developed over time, the mental habits that you've developed over time. You start to recognize, okay, well, this came from this came from that. Why do you, a great example, and I'll use this one a lot. Think about your favorite drink, whether it's water, soda, tea, coffee, whatever it is. Think about your favorite drink and think about why. What is it that led you, the choices and the steps over your life that led you to liking whatever drink it is right now? I was talking about this with a client a long time ago. He said his favorite drink was Mountain Dew. And I started asking him to go back through how long ago did you start that? And he said it went as far back as his teenage years. A friend of his that he used to hang out with a lot liked Mountain Dew, and he wanted to be like his friend, so he started drinking a lot of Mountain Dew. They both started just getting 2-liter bottles as they moved in together, rather than drinking much of anything else. So his favorite drink became Mountain Dew. One of my favorite drinks is coffee. I used to actually drink. I'd have some coffee with my cream and sugar, and now I like it black. And there's a whole progression that I've recognized over time to why I like my coffee black now rather than with cream and sugar. So step 2 is understanding why you have the thought patterns you have. And you can see which ones you can understand why you want to change some and why you want to keep others, which brings us to step 3, which is alteration. This is where you start actively changing your thought patterns. Excuse me again. This is where you start short-circuiting the negative thought patterns and start boosting up or enhancing the positive negative thought, or the positive thought patterns, the positive emotions. Just like we were talking about with short-circuiting your fears while you're these fears during COVID. There's ways you can just stop those short, and that is, the distraction is one way you can do it, but we'll get into that in a later class. Finally, once you started making the alterations that you want to make, you move to awakening. Now, this is pretty much where you move on for the rest of your life, living mindfully. You're constantly, you've developed the skills, you've developed the practice, you've developed the new habits of watching what's going on in here as it happens, moment to moment. Even though you're doing other things, you're constantly watching what's going on in here, and you're doing the first 3 steps over and over and over and over. And this is where your life starts to really make some serious changes. You start living healthier, you start living happier, because you start recognizing, or you've come to the point where you've recognized what keeps you down, what boosts you up, and you just get to the point where, okay, I'm having this emotion, I like it, I don't like it, and the cumulative effect of all of this time with the first 3 steps leads to a happier life. So these are the 4 steps of mindfulness. I'm going to go back just a little bit and kind of say, a lot of people that I've talked to, they think meditation is mindfulness. And I've gotten that question a lot over the years. I meditate all the time. Isn't that being mindful? Meditation is a tool that you can use to be mindful. Meditation isn't mindfulness, and we'll have a whole class on meditation down the line, because it is one of the more well-known tools of mindfulness. So with that said, let's get to the 5-minute exercise. Okay, this is where yesterday I said to have a pad and paper handy, to have a recording or Word document out. This is where we're going to get into the actual exercise itself. So what you're going to do is, here in just a moment, I'm going to put on a 5-minute timer. And as that timer is going, what you're going to do is you're going to write or type out or record, audio record, whatever. You're going to record whatever crosses your mind. Okay? You're going to jump on that train of thought and write it along and just record whatever's going on. Doesn't matter how fast you write, how slow you write, doesn't matter if you're missing stuff. Don't worry about that. Okay? Don't worry if you're missing thoughts. Just start writing whatever, take that filter out. Whatever passes through your mind, start writing it down. Now, there's a couple things we're going to do here. First one, no self-editing. Do not try and edit to make it look better, feel better. If you write, well, I hate the way this guy's shirt is, I hate the way the picture is, write that down. The puppy's pissing me off, the kids are irritating me. Don't worry about it, positive or negative. I had a great breakfast this morning. I'm really loving the fruit we bought. Doesn't matter, up or down, good or bad. Don't edit it. Don't judge yourself either for what you're writing. Okay, this is a huge part of the analysis step. You're going to take the judgment out of what you're becoming aware of. Because we all have thoughts that are positive and negative. We have healthy thoughts. We have negative, unhealthy thoughts. Don't worry about it. Right now, you're just recording. You're just tracking. Kind of like if you were sitting next to a street, counting how many blue cars, how many red cars, how many trucks. Don't worry about what type of truck they are. or what type of car it is, just write down the number of cars. Write down the thoughts that are going through your mind as they happen. It's huge that you take out the editing, take out the judgment, because if you start editing and you start judging, it means you're not paying attention to some of the thoughts. And that's a good way to trick yourself into thinking you're doing the exercise when you're really not, or thinking that you're getting healthier when you're really not. So let's get that timer up and going. Let's see if it'll do what I want it to do. All right. So put pen to paper, and timer is going to start right now. See if we can do this without getting tagged for copyright or something. I didn't realize the music, it actually was playing music. Nice. So now that we've got through that 5 minutes of writing, and I got to say, it's kind of interesting watching my monitor from what I'm recording to what's coming across in the YouTube stream and the couple seconds lag. It's kind of interesting. But I think what we're going to do is we're going to actually kind of make that one of the beginning things for every class. We'll take 5 minutes and just let you write down and just do the exercise before we get into the new stuff. We'll see how it works. Oops. All right, so what I'd like you to do is focus on what you wrote. Look back on what you wrote, whether you wrote a lot, whether you wrote a little bit. Look at what you actually typed and look for emotions. Look for what are actual thoughts. Look for, and the main idea of those thoughts. That sounds redundant, but just look for what triggers those thoughts, what emotions you're having, what you're writing about. And for the first couple of weeks that you're doing this, and just do it once a day, twice a day, how many ever times a day you want to do it. And I'm going to be honest, most people for the first week, actually for the first 2 or 3 days, they do it 8 or 9 times a day, which is fine. Just don't get discouraged if after that you kind of bump back down to once or twice a day. But you do want to keep doing this daily, at least once a day. So for the first and second week, what you're looking for is thoughts, emotions, triggers, and you want to pay attention to those because these are the cars on your train of thought. These are what you want to focus on. Don't worry about tracking them. Don't worry about trying to make sense of them right now. All you're doing for this first few weeks is just getting them out. You're practicing getting them out. Again, no editing, no judging, just get them out. Oh. And it looks like for a moment, that was odd. Okay. We lost the connection for a second there. I don't know if you lost it at home or if just here. Let me put something in chat really quick. Reload the page. All right. Sorry about that. All right, so let's get back to where we were at. All right, so like I said, for this part, don't worry about judging or editing. Don't worry about trying to understand it. We're not at the analysis stage right now. Right now, you're just practicing the awareness. However, once we get to the third week, you're going to be doing the same thing. You're still going to be looking for emotions, thoughts, triggers, but at the end of the third week, you're also going to be looking for patterns. And starting at the end of the third week, what you're going to do is not only are you going to look for patterns and thoughts and triggers daily, but go through your entire week. Go back through what you wrote through the entire week and look for bigger patterns. Look and see if you're constantly writing about being unhappy about something or super happy about something, whether something's making you angry, something's making you forgetful. Just look for those bigger patterns throughout the week. Again, don't try and understand them. Just start understanding or start recognizing the patterns. Okay, and that's pretty much how you're going to go from now on. Every day, write at the end of the week. Look for patterns throughout the week. At the end of the month, look for bigger patterns that cover the whole month. And this is how you're going to find yourself getting through the process of awareness. It really is actually that simple, and you just do it 5 minutes at a time. You can do it at your desk at work. You can do it at home. You can take a few minutes while you're eating breakfast. You can take a few minutes. You can take 5 minutes before you go to bed. You can write about your day for that 5 minutes. You can type. There's so many places and so many times you can take that 5 minutes. Just like a lot of exercise programs say, and I know that's upsetting for a lot of people, but you can take 5 minutes a day. We spend more than that time, or we spend more than 5 minutes scrolling through Facebook or Reddit. It takes longer than that to cook an egg. Just take that 5 minutes a day, start the exercise, and you start the process. All right. So from here, we're going to start in a little bit on understanding how your mind actually works. So there's all sorts of, you can study psychology like I have for years and years, but in layman's terms, what your mind actually boils down to, your thought patterns, your personality, what it all actually boils down to is associations, connections. One thing in your past leads to another, which leads to another, which leads to another, which leads to who you are now. I think the phrase is, and I meant to put this in and I forgot, the phrase of thought creates word, word creates deed, deed creates habit, habit creates personality trait. Now I added the habit creates personality trait, but that really is how it works. Your thoughts and the thoughts you have and the thoughts you've had in the past, the thoughts you're having now, all change in shape, and it creates a filter in your mind of how you experience the world, it filters your input, filters your output, and so it's this whole long twist turn of connections that creates who you are. And that's pretty much what we're going to be doing. We're going to be teaching you how to understand the associations and connections that have led you to who you are now, and we're going to create new associations. I got to tell you, yesterday I was talking about how easy it is to create the fear and how easy it is to get away from the fear. We just don't like to because our minds like intense emotions. Part of the hypnotherapy that I work with a lot of people in creating new, getting rid of their phobias, getting rid of smoking, getting rid of PTSD, or treating PTSD. I can't say getting rid of PTSD. That's a long process. But the idea is breaking associations and creating new ones, breaking connections, creating new ones. Speaking of PTSD, one of the big treatments for it is to get the person to step away from mentally step away from the emotions and the traumas of the situation that created PTSD in the first place, and be able to create a new filter to look at them through. That way they can deal with those emotions in a better, healthier, more constructive way. I just read an article yesterday that said a lot of the frontline workers that are in the hospitals right now are probably going to end up with some form of PTSD because they're working these super long hours, these traumatic situations that they're being put into more than they're used to in a day. I mean, somebody in an ER sees a lot of stuff during their shift, but they're seeing even more and more and more now. Doctors, nurses, I mean, they're being put into more emotional and more traumatic situation than they're used to, and that's creating negative associations, creating traumatic associations, and so they're going to need treatment for PTSD when this is all over. Part of that treatment, again, is going to be breaking those negative associations so they can go back and process the memory, process the situation, and be able to move forward with their lives. Now, the nature versus nurture, it's a huge debate that I don't really get the nature versus nurture. I mean, I get the concept, but why so many theories are trying to say it's nature more than nurture, or it's nurture more than nature? It's different for everybody. Somebody with SIDS or Down syndrome, obviously that's more nature changing their development rather than nurture. Doesn't mean it's still not a combination of the two. Somebody who has no physical, I want to say impairments, but it's, you know what I mean. Somebody who has no physical impairments, physical mental impairments, who is brought up in a very negative or very positive environment, obviously that's going to be more nurture than nature. What you've experienced through your life is a combination of nature and nurture. Okay, and you're going to be going back through this and realizing it as you create more and more awareness. But that's actually a huge thing, and it cracks me up even through all the classes I've taken where there are just huge debates over this. Understand it's nature and nurture. What your combination of is unique to you, and is going to be completely different from anybody else. All right, so that's kind of what where we're going to stop for today. Really, these first classes are going to be just a quick blow through, a quick introduction, because now we're going to be doing these classes daily rather than our usual weekly classes. If you keep going with the classes, keep tuning in daily, every weekday, you're going to get a lot of this thrown at you quick. But these videos are up on YouTube. You can go back through, you can review, and just keep on going back through the lessons as you need to. So for tomorrow, almost used to saying for next week, for tomorrow, we're going to kind of do the same thing we did today. We're going to go through kind of a quick review of today's lesson. We're going to address any new questions, concerns, fears that people are sending in. We're going to take that 5 minutes, do the exercise, let you just write, do the same thing we did today, just won't be as much time taken. Tomorrow we're also going to get into faster EFT tapping, which is a way to break associations and get rid of some of your negative connections. We're also going to be talking about thoughts. You have big thoughts, you have medium thoughts, you have small thoughts, or I actually like to call them micro thoughts, but we're going to get a little quick introduction into that tomorrow. So really quick, I know we've got a few more people in. Does anybody have any questions that they'd like to throw up on the chat? Give it just a couple moments. I know we lost a couple things, or a couple people to the to whatever the network break was. All right. No questions? All right. Well, then, we're going to call it good there for this class, and tomorrow we'll keep on going. Now, because this is YouTube, I have to ask, if you're liking what you're seeing, click the link below, the like, subscribe button below. Make sure YouTube is seeing this so that it can get out to more and more people. So it's the way the algorithm works. And click the notifications bell as well. That way, even if you forget, you'll get a notification that the next class is starting. All right, so we'll see you tomorrow. Go back through and just look back through what you wrote today a couple of times and enjoy yourself. Okay, we'll see you later.